Oh man, we're back.
Yeah, we are.
We're back. Welcome back to the Internet Writing Buddies podcast. How did I describe it last time? The most splendiferous, most wonderfully. It was a bunch of words I just made up. Anyway, that's
I,
us.
Splendiferous was in there because that's one of my favorite words you made up. It's awesome.
Yeah, about ADV, dual sport, and other garbage podcast. And today we have something very special happening because it occurred to us that if we're going to sit here and talk to you and expect you to listen to us and care about what we have to say, which I still don't get why you're doing that, but thanks anyway. It wouldn't hurt to know who we are, what our background is. I always say that, like everything I review, everything I talk about, it's all filtered through the experience of who I am as a person, right? And so the better understanding you have of that, the more you can decide whether it's even relevant to you, right? And so today we're going to take the opportunity to get to know our great friend, the wonderful. She called herself my sidekick, and I was like, "Don't you mean side chick?" Because that's what everyone keeps saying. But
The side chick. Yeah,
yeah,
for sure.
I feel like she doesn't know what that means, but I'll show her later.
I do.
Yeah, I know. But that's not true. She's my co-host. Don't call yourself a sidekick. Don't call it a comeback. The immaculate. Yeah, that's right. The immaculate, the graceful renegade. So today we're going to spend a little time talking to Grace. I'm going to interview her. I've prepared some questions. She has not seen them ahead of time. It should be fun. But first, let's talk about a topic that I know you're all very interested in. And probably the most relevant thing about Grace, really, nothing else matters to some of you. I'm kidding, by the way. But anyway, I heard you did a fun photo shoot last week. Why don't you tell us about it?
Yeah, so I did a very fun photo shoot with one of my best girlfriends, who's a very talented boudoir and wedding photographer here in Bend, Oregon. And apparently some pictures of me not in motorcycle gear pissed a lot of people off. But yeah, I did a very fun, somewhat tastefully racy photo shoot with my friend Ashley. And it was a nice, fun thing to do in January when I'm not riding and a little bored, and also having some fun with another fellow artist. But it is always fascinating to see what happens as a female when you are in this community and you post something that is non-motorcycle related and that might even hint at the fact that you are a female, because oh my gosh, the backlash in positive and negative ways was so crazy. As you can imagine, lots of compliments, love it. Also, lots of very negative comments that were not great. I was called a sellout. I was called a fraud. I was called an OnlyFans something. I don't know. And then also that I was selling porn now instead of riding motorcycles, which is not true. And yeah, so I had to block about, I think, 12 different male accounts, mind you, that all were attacking me for not doing motorcycle anything for, I don't know, a day and a half. So to all of those people, I say, please get the underwear out of your ass and calm the fuck down. Anyway, yeah.
Small PP energy.
Yeah, for sure.
Here. Damn it, I had a really good follow-up and I lost it. First of all, I love Tastefully Racy. That's that actually should be the new name of the podcast.
Tastefully Racy.
Okay, here actually no, I remembered. And so whenever I see a photo like that, especially of someone I know personally, I just don't say shit, because there is no non-creepy way to give a compliment, I don't think, to be like, hey, nice picture. That doesn't sorry, it just doesn't come off. So yeah, so and I think it is interesting, this sort of puritanical reaction people have to anything that could be considered remotely racy, as you're saying. Because it's like, it's art. It's a photographer. It's art, man.
Yeah. I mean, my friend Ashley is an unbelievable photographer. I love her. She's worked with Sony for a lot of years. Like, she's one of those people who's made an amazing career for herself here in Bend. And you know, she's going to be getting married here in a couple of months. And I'm going to be doing video for her wedding. Like, you know, it's just, there's a lot of times where you have friends that are in other fields of art. And what a lot of people don't know is, like, before I got into the motorcycle scene, like, I was way more of an artist is how I would put it. I was writing books. I was really into photography. I wasn't even into video until 2 years ago. And so it's funny to me to have all these people be just like outraged by it, when really it's like, this is an even bigger part of my personality than motorcycles. You know, motorcycling is my hobby and it's what I love to do. It's not who I am. And it's just crazy, I think, sometimes. Also, back to your point about being a male friend, if you ever have a girlfriend or someone you know and you see a picture like that and you don't know what to say, just say something nice. Like, we appreciate even just like a little fire emoji, whatever. Keep it tasteful and simple is the best way to do it. But I got a lot of messages from my guy friends that were really nice and wonderful. I mean, I've been kicking my ass in the gym for like 3 months. So I appreciate compliments on the fact that like I've worked very hard to look like this. But yeah, just don't make it creepy. That's all. That's all.
Yep. Yep.
Yep.
Yep. Well, yeah. I don't comment on younger women's pictures or generally women's pictures and all.
Yeah.
Just
I don't
drop
blame you.
a heart and move on.
Yep.
Show my wife, like, look at this great picture of Grace. Yeah, that's about it.
Yep.
Okay, good. God. Also, you're already doing it. And this time I did not send you my questions ahead of time, but your transitions are so good.
I know.
And I hate you for it.
I know. I think we just know each other well enough to feed off of each other at this point. Yeah.
So I want to talk about you. That's why we're here. I want the people to get to know you. And so my first question is maybe the most important. Why the Graceful Renegade?
Ooh, that's such a good question.
I had
I
to step it up because when you did this with me, you had such good questions. I was like, I can't do any bullshit.
Yeah.
What's your favorite album stuff? Like, let's go.
What's your favorite color, Ben?
Red.
Not red. Yeah, so the Graceful Renegade was obviously it's a play off of my name, Grace. But at the time when I was trying to create a little bit of a presence around motorcycles and traveling and the adventuring I do, it was trying to embody a persona of somebody that is just kind of living life a little bit on the edge, a little bit more unconventionally and a little more wild than most, which is definitely all the things that I am. And renegade is just kind of a word that I associate with somebody who marches to the beat of their own drum and follows kind of a lifestyle of nonconformity and does what they think is best for themselves and follows their own path. So for me, the graceful part is a little ironic, but I always tend to joke with people that my name might be one of the most ironic things about me because I don't find myself to be a graceful person. I am a klutz. I trip over everything. I fall off my motorcycle a lot. I run into shit a lot. And yeah, so, you know, it's kind of a great irony, but it did fit with my name and the image I was going for to build around all of that with social media.
So you're a big fan of ironic dichotomies then, because you just said tastefully racy, which is another one.
I know. Right? I'm a huge fan of throwing dichotomies together because I think it's life is all about balance, and throwing two things together that don't quite fit is always a good time.
I would say that is something that is it. What am I trying to say? I want to say is like part of your personality, but that's not exactly what I mean. But it's more like you're all about contradictions and investigating and exploring maybe new ideas and perspectives that others maybe haven't considered. I think that's the kind of thing you tend to latch onto as your friend that I've noticed.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be about my observations of you. Okay. Give us I want you to give us the TikTok version that is 3 minutes or less version of your backstory. How is the road that you've ridden, walked, ran, driven, led you here to being interviewed on your very own podcast by a dork with a weird beard?
Who for the record,
you? Where did you come from, bro? 3 minutes.
3 minutes. All right, on the clock, ready, go. Also, by the way, your beard looks great. I know. Let's get started. So I grew up in the Midwest. I grew up in a family that is highly invested in medicine, and I was always a little bit more of the black sheep. I got into college. I was an English literature major because I wanted to be a writer, and I also originally wanted to be a college professor and get my PhD. However, I had an amazing professor pull me aside and tell me that I had too wild of a heart to be stuck in the middle of nowhere, Ohio, teaching for the rest of my life. So I really took that and ran with it. And when I was in my 20s, I was previously married and with an awesome human being for about 9 years. And he was a lot like me. We traveled a lot. We rode motorcycles together. We had a great time. During that time, I wrote 3 novels. I got really into podcasting. Actually, I had a small cult following of people that followed my literary podcast called Legacy, the Artist Behind the Legends. It was really fun, and I enjoyed doing that for about 3 years. I think there's almost 95 episodes or something, but I essentially ended up getting divorced. Where am I at my time? Doing good. Okay. I ended up getting divorced in 2019 when I had lived in Portland with my ex and moved out to Bend, Oregon. And I fell in love with Bend after moving to Oregon a couple years prior. It's just so beautiful here. And the minute I got here, I pretty much just started rebuilding my life from the ground up. And a lot of my life started to revolve around camping, being outside, motorcycles, all the things that I felt I never really had enough time to do and really wanted to start doing on my own. And the next thing you know, the pandemic hit and I was outside all the time. I was riding motorcycles all the time. And as the pandemic eased, I got a job working with Ride Adventures in Bend, which threw me into the world of ADV riding and off-road riding, which I hadn't been a part of previously. And after that fell through, after almost a year, I ended up living on the road and traveling and living off my CB500X, which was such a blast. I camped way more than people will ever realize and slept in a lot of interesting places. Also some amazing, beautiful places throughout North America, including Canada and Mexico and Baja. And I had a winter in Southeast Asia where I traveled through Thailand, I traveled through Vietnam, and I traveled through Bali. And all in the meanwhile, I was working on my videography skills and writing a book about my travels. Also working remotely the whole time, by the way, because bills don't pay themselves, everybody. But yeah, and then in the meantime, I met this lovely gentleman who's sitting on the other side of this computer who became one of my best friends. And we just kept in touch and attended rallies together, went riding together, and became really close. And now we have this awesome podcast, and I'm sitting here talking to you from my closet.
4 minutes, pretty good. It would just there would be a part 2 on TikTok. It'd be like follow for part 2, which I hate.
Yeah. I know.
Whatever.
Sorry, I tried for 3. I made it 4.
Good. That's pretty good. I thought that was kind of a hard task. Well done. You nailed it. Okay. Now, probably the thing that you love pointing out to everyone the most about yourself is that you won an Emmy. So what we haven't heard is the story behind that. And it's coming up a lot in the comments. And I get my favorite comment so far is, who is that dude talking to Emmy winner Grace?
Honestly, those type of comments, for the record, I like to joke about my Emmy because in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't mean a lot because
I disagree.
Emmys don't pay the bills, but they're a nice, I think, award. And it's a nice, I guess, observation of hard work more than anything else, which is something I greatly appreciate considering how hard I've worked the last couple of years. But yeah, my Emmy was won last July. It was a Heartland Regional Emmy. I was there with my business partner, Alex Chacon, and he and I had filmed that together the previous summer when we were traveling through Wyoming, and mashed up this really beautiful video on YouTube called Limits. I think it won the Short Storyteller is the video it won. But yeah, it was an incredible experience. I mean, Alex and I worked really hard to create that film. Some really unbelievable cinematic shots that, I took, he took, and we just had a great time doing it. So it definitely showed. If anybody wants to check it out, it's on Alex's YouTube page, Alex Chacon, and the title of it is Limits. It's fantastic. It's only about 4 minutes, but that is what I won an Emmy for.
I'll try to remember to put that in the description of the video. You're gonna have to go find it yourself if you're listening.
Yes.
Okay, tell us what you're doing now, all about your media empire. Where are you creating content and what kinds of content are you creating now?
This is actually a really fun time for me because I am going to be transitioning back into more video on a personal level. I've spent the last 8 months wrapping up 2 documentaries I filmed this year. One was for Veterans Back 40, and we did a trip up to Tuktoyaktuk in the Yukon over the summer in June. You're the only one that can
say that correctly, by the way.
It took a long time to be able to pronounce that. Honestly, every time I say it, I have like a moment of being nervous where I'm like, don't botch it. But thankfully I haven't in a while. But yes, Tuktoyaktuk, it's a mouthful. We traveled there from Astoria, Oregon. and Alex Chacon and I filmed an incredible documentary that'll be coming out. I believe at the Giant Loop Ride is when we were going to do the premiere, which I'm super stoked
Oh,
for. So
you heard it here
anyone,
first,
yeah,
folks.
anyone going to the Giant Loop Ride, you will have the first viewing. It's going to be great. It basically is a documentary discussing veteran and active duty suicide whilst in the backdrop of an incredibly stunning cinematic adventure motorcycle ride up there. The other big project I worked on is a documentary that's for public land stewards here in Bend, Oregon. And this is just focusing on the issue we're having with our public lands here in Central Oregon, which is we're having excessive amounts of trash from a lot of displaced persons and also from people in town dumping on public land. And it's become a serious problem. It has also made a lot of our public lands unsafe. And so we are doing the best we can to shed light on the problem and try and bring some solutions about. But those two projects have been a huge part of my last couple of months, as well as doing motorcycle content with Hippo Hands, and highly recommend Hippo Hands, especially right now during winter riding. They help so much. I worked with Molecule Motorsports, been working with Giant Loop. Into 2024, a lot's going to be changing for me. I'm actually going to be shifting to working with Moto Camp Nerd for the summer with Ben, which is going to be very fun. And I will be cutting back a lot of my brand work actually and focusing on my channel, on creating my own media and working on more documentary projects. So there'll be a lot of motorcycle riding as always, but we're going to kind of start to trim the fat so I can have a little bit of a life again, because now that I've moved back to Bend, Oregon, it's nice to be here and I want to enjoy it.
Yeah, that reminds me of something I was going to ask you earlier, and that's about where people can find your stuff. And I know we talk about
Yeah.
it every time, but this is a standalone, so let's make sure it's in there. So if
Yeah.
somebody wanted to avoid being scandalized by those pictures of you, what Instagram should they block immediately?
You should block the Graceful Renegade immediately.
Immediately.
It's terrible.
It will corrupt your soul. But so you're talking about your own channel. So where can people talk about what you've been doing lately? Because your current video series, and where the hell can they find it?
Yeah. So for everybody that doesn't know already, I'm on YouTube under the Graceful Renegade as well. And my YouTube channel originally was started as a travel motorcycle kind of narrative with a lot of cinematic footage and me talking about what I was doing, where I was going, and just what I was kind of facing on the road. And it's transitioned quite a bit. It's now become much more of an on the fly series where I'm taking you on a lot of these videography trips with me to show you these amazing places I get to go film, whether it's on motorcycles or not. And especially this time of year, I'm doing a lot of filming that is out in the wilderness, but obviously not on a motorcycle. So it's kind of a fun way to give you some insight into not only my life, but this amazing place that I live, as well as kind of what goes into being a videographer too. And the time it takes to get out there, to get drone footage and all of those things. I also am on Instagram, which is very fun. Instagram for me is just kind of a stream of consciousness things. It's everything from footage I'm throwing together to memes that I think are hilarious, or just trying to inspire people to do something out of their comfort zone, or just to hang in there with how all over the place life can seem to be for everybody. But the one important release I had this last week is of the Public Land Stewards extended trailer for the documentary. It really gives some insight into what the documentary is going to showcase, which is, again, a lot of trash, a lot of cleanup, but it also really starts to explain why we're dealing with the problems we are, what we can do about them, and why volunteering for these type of nonprofits to keep our public lands open is so important, especially for motorcyclists, whether it's ADV or dual sport or dirt or whatever. Our public lands are where a lot of us ride, and it's where a lot of us go to OHV areas. It's where a lot of us go camp for the weekend. It's where a lot of... Are you playing video games in the background?
No, I had a video rendering. I forgot. It just finished. Sorry, continue.
But yeah, so just shedding light, especially for our community in particular. I think it's very important for everybody to understand that keeping our public lands open means more area for us to get to play, and also more area for us to get to explore, which I don't know about you guys, but that's the whole reason I'm on my motorcycle. So.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, help me solve a mystery. And do it without using the phrase nom de plume. Who is Whiskey Emerson? Question mark.
Whiskey Emerson was my pen name
Oh, you could say nom
Ah,
de plume if you want.
yes. So for those of you who haven't been following me since the beginning of my time on Instagram, I was previously Whiskey Emerson on Instagram because that was my pen name when I was writing novels, and still am writing novels, but I switched to the Graceful Renegade as my motorcycle endeavors really started to take over my content and my life. But yes, if you are interested in the historical fiction thriller series I've written called West of Hell, it is a trilogy. I'm actually working on the third book intermittently right now, which I'm very excited about. But you can find those books on Amazon under Whiskey Emerson, and it will be quite a trip for you because it's a very different side of my personality that not a lot of people know exists.
Nice. I love it.
Yeah.
That's my favorite fun fact about you that I feel like I would have a t-shirt like screw the Emmy. I would have a t-shirt that was like, "Oh, I wrote a couple novels. It's not a big deal." Like one of my life goals to this day, bucket list, is to write a book. And I used to think it was going to be a novel, and now I think it's going to be about motorcycle camping or something. But anyway, we're not here to talk about me.
We're always here
So
to talk about you, Ben.
you throw it in every time. Starting to make me think you think that. Anyway, what is your overall media strategy? Do you have a consistent message you're trying to convey, a mission statement, and how do you keep everything you create, if you have one of those, aligned to it?
Honestly, the big thing that I stay aligned with is what I consider my mission statement, which is live wild, ride free. I say it all the time. And the reason why I made that my quote unquote mission statement is because I am the type of person where I feel like my entire life I have been constantly evolving and changing in what interests me, what inspires me, and what kind of pushes me to try new things, whether it's living on the road for 14 months or settling back into life in Bend or being on a touring motorcycle versus a dirt motorcycle or getting into drone footage versus using my GoPro or my Sony. It's just, there's always going to be something new I am trying. There's always going to be something else that I want to kind of chase and try out. I'm just one of those type of people. But the big thing I stand behind is just that I am constantly pushing people to not only find a general happiness for themselves as best they can, but to also try new things and get themselves outside of their comfort zone. And it doesn't have to be big, insane, crazy things. I know I'm a very special breed of person that is kind of off the books a lot of the time. You know, I think me doing what I did in the last 2 years, a lot of people look at me and just shake their head like I could never do that. And I don't think most people could, but what I try to inspire other people to do, particularly women, is just to believe in themselves. And if you want to try something new, if you want to try anything that just pushes you a little bit, go for it and see where it takes you. You know, failure is something that is kind of shied away from in our society. And I don't know why, because the only way we grow is through failure. And I'm constantly failing and learning and growing. And the more I can push that for people and the more I can inspire people to just try all these things, the happier I am. And that's really all that matters to me, is just allowing people to find that confidence in themselves to believe that they can do hard things.
Damn, just answered my next question. Well done. So you have a very unique um, life, let's say. Freelance content creator with a sort of flexible, shall we say, day job. So I'm just curious, share with us, what does your day look like right now? I'm not going to say a typical day because I know you don't necessarily have those, but like one day last week or one day this week, what did it look like from start to finish?
Buckle your seatbelts, everybody. So I'm usually up at 5 to 5:30 every day, no matter what. And
I can vouch for that because I wake up to 4 text messages also.
I'm usually up very early. I either am right into working my remote job, which is I have been a medical coder for a medical billing company for 13 years. It's an amazing remote job that I've had. It's been super flexible with my lifestyle. I've shifted in and out of being full and part time while I've been doing content creation, but it is an amazing gig to have, and I'm super grateful for it. It Yeah, so I'm up at 5:30. I'm either at the gym for 2 hours or I start working. And then that kind of flips. So if I start working right away, then I go to the gym after to break up my day. After a couple hours of doing coding work, I usually walk my dogs or take them to the dog park. Around lunch, I start to dive into emails for anything motorcycle related, anything content related. My afternoons are usually spent either in the field or editing footage or um, getting through any of the to-do list of things that goes into motorcycle stuff. Like right now, this week, for example, I'm in the shop with my buddy Tim all week doing the Transalp build that I'm filming for my YouTube channel and talking through all the aftermarket parts that we're putting on the bike, etc. So that's just kind of then my afternoons. Evenings are usually another walk with the dogs, feed them, and then I'm usually editing from 5 or 6 o'clock at night until about 8 or 9 o'clock at night. And then I try and read for an hour and go to sleep. Now, of course, intermittently, I will have life things. I'll have dinner with friends where I'll take a night where I don't do that. And I usually will shift editing and production to the afternoons. I also do like to get up and do sunrise hikes in the morning. That's one of my favorite things to do here in Bend. I know,
Wow.
Ben, roll your eyes.
That's
But
bad.
yeah, the big adjustment for me that's been great about being back in Bend, Oregon, though, is my weeks are usually jammed with work, but I usually have Saturdays off to just enjoy being a human being. And those Saturdays are usually out in the woods, either riding motorcycles, going on hikes, hanging out with my friends and their kids, and just being here. And it's been great. But yeah, I crush a lot of 12 to 15-hour days, and it's great. I love it. But I'm also starting to get better at a work-life balance gig right now, and I'm starting to enjoy sleep and all the things I haven't had for 2 years. And yeah, it's getting better.
So, would you consider yourself a workaholic?
I think I'm coming out of my workaholic phase. For the last couple years, my whole life has been revolved around building my career. And now that I kind of have gotten to a place where things have evened out and I have enough work to not only financially stay afloat, but to keep me busy, I am cutting and trimming the fat where I don't need it. So there's actually a lot of smaller projects that I've been a part of that I'm going to be walking away from here in the next month, just to give myself some time to enjoy riding motorcycles and enjoy riding season and be able to just have a life again. Because now that I'm not traveling 24/7 and now that I am stable, essentially, it's nice to have those moments for myself. And yeah, it's been kind of nice to go from one extreme to the other.
Well, you heard it here first. She's trimming the fat. Yes, this will be a solo Grace podcast going forward. I will be the fat
Don't
and I
listen to
will be
him.
trimmed. No. Okay.
No.
Okay. Okay. So,
So
next month,
yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say someone has to keep you on your toes and keep that diva thing under control
Yeah.
because we know
People are
it's a
going to start
problem.
thinking you're serious, or I am. Anyway, stay humble. Hashtag blessed. So, speaking of staying humble, next month, I have the honor of presenting at Career Day at the high school where I used to work. And I'm so excited about it because it'll be a great chance to get back in the building and in front of kids and embarrass my child who goes to school there. But if you were there, what advice can you give me to share with aspiring content creators who think they want to live the life of a full-time content creator? What would you say to them?
Don't do it.
I knew it.
And let me go on a mini soapbox here for a minute, because the reason I'm saying don't do it isn't because I think it isn't because of competition or an oversaturated market or the fact that it's just not the beast it used to be. It's more, I'm saying because content creators, uh, for the most part, I think Ben and a couple of other people that are good friends of mine are a rare exception to this, but most of the big time content creators and influencers that I know in this realm of work are some of the most miserable people I know. And it's not an exaggeration. And I think Ben will back me up on that one.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
I think that unfortunately with content creation, there has been this push to turn everybody into their own celebrity and everybody into constantly being hyper focused on how other people perceive them. And that does some weird things to your brain after a while. I actually just had a really big heart to heart with a friend of mine about this last night because it's something that I'm coming out of right now. And it's been such a strange adjustment to start to understand how a lot of that stuff was starting to change me and not for the better. And I'm happy to be taking a step back. But I think that with how social media has become and with how content creation has become, particularly for younger generations, the best thing you can do for yourself is take a step away from that and look at what you actually like doing as a person that is not your phone, that's not on a screen, and build an idea of who you want to be around that. I think there's just so much of, oh, I need to be the best at this, or I need to look this way, or, oh, FOMO, they're traveling here, I need to travel there, or like, oh, they're having this experience, I need to have that experience. And the bottom line is everything on social media is an illusion. Everything is not real. It is just what people want other people to see because, again, they're their own celebrity. So if I'm ever in front of a group of kids, of young women, of anybody that wants to be a celebrity, wants to be an influencer, wants to have a content creation filled life, my advice is going to be, if you want to do that, then make sure it's a skill set you like me with videography. I love videography. And while I was doing a lot of social media things, now I'm starting to dive more into bigger production work and I love it. And so if you do love that type of creation, do that. Don't be the person that his face is on the camera, because over time it's just going to meld you into what other people want and not who you are going to be happy being. Now, again, I'm just going to emphasize that Ben is an exception to this. He is legit one of my favorite human beings on the planet and is an awesome dude and is himself on the camera and in real life. So,
Well, shit, that just makes what I'm about to say sound like I'm complimenting you because you said something nice about me, but you're awesome. Like, you're you're smart and wise, and I just don't know that many people. Sorry, the rest of my friends. That I don't know. That every time I ask you a question, you surprise me, and you like. There's a genuine just level of. I've said this before. Like, it must be exhausting to be you because you're one of the deepest thinkers that I know. Like, it's
yeah.
like, ugh. Like, so you're awesome, smart and wise. Great advice. Um, and speaking of smart and wise and great advice, particularly for female content creators, as you said, I realize this could be its own topic, its own podcast, which probably at some point we should do, just because you have a super unique perspective.
Yeah.
But just going back to what you mentioned at the beginning and how there's kind of a double standard, and you're for some reason not allowed to embrace who you are, and it's only motorcycling things. Can you talk just a little bit about the challenges unique to being a content creator in this space as a woman, and or not just as the person in front of the camera, but like you're saying, maybe from the production side, like what does the business side look like and how is maybe that different for you?
It's fascinating from a lot of different perspectives. So I guess from the me in front of the camera perspective, I think one of the biggest issues for women is the double standard. It's you can and I don't know if anybody has seen the Barbie movie, but America Ferrera's speech in that is so on point with the double standards that women have to deal with all the time, which is being smart but not too smart, being sexy but not too sexy, being sympathetic and empathetic, but also being able to be a bad bitch and whatever else. And like that line that you have to walk is so exhausting. And I, as a person, and me loving dichotomies like we touched on earlier, I like to throw both sides of my personality that are those things out there as consistently as I can. Like, I heard this great, like, I obviously don't know this person at all, but one of the most inspiring things I heard in the last couple of months, other than that speech from the Barbie film, because oh my gosh, it hits home for almost every woman I know. I listened to an incredible interview with Megan Fox, who's a very stunningly beautiful actress and model. And one of the things she talks about is how most smart business women start to learn, if they're attractive, how to use that to their advantage. And that it can be an asset that takes you a lot of places, but it also comes with the consequence of dealing with that double standard. And every woman has to make a decision about what place they want to be at. And I made a decision a long time ago that very much aligns with that, which is I'm going to post pictures of me half naked, mostly naked, on a bike occasionally because one, they stir up a lot of commotion, which I find super fun. And
Hmm.
two, it's also a part of who I am. Like, for me, I'm not doing anything like, lewd or crude or whatever. It's more art for me. It's more like I'm a human being just like you. Like I am proud of my body. I work very hard to capture these moments and I'm going to use those to my advantage. Obviously doesn't always work out great. You get a lot of nasty things occasionally. And I have my mother calling me like, why are you putting another naked picture of yourself on Instagram? You're going to have stalkers. Be careful. But yeah, it's a double standard and those double standards are hard. There's no way around them though. That's the problem. And that's the thing that all female content creators, influencers, anybody in this industry needs to understand is just there's no way around it. It exists. It's not going anywhere. And that's just how it works. The issue is just, again, being able to wrap your brain around it, how to use it to your advantage, what you're okay with, and what consequences you're okay with dealing with as a result of that. And me, I feel really great about the community of people I have behind me. If I'm going to have to deal with a few assholes, I deal with a few assholes and then I move on.
Sometimes you
From
do
the other,
podcasts with them.
get out of here. The other side of it from behind the camera as a businesswoman who's running my own production company where I am my only employee and everything I do myself, you are going to find that there are some moments where being attractive and also being very well spoken and intelligent is going to get you through the door. But if you don't have the wherewithal to back that up, you're going to find yourself in worse trouble than if you can, obviously. And I think that there are harsher consequences for women who don't, kind of step up to the plate. And there's expectations that if you're a female, you have to stand out and you have to work harder than everybody else. And I fall into the working hard category, but I do think that that is something to be wary of is the expectations weirdly get higher, especially if you are in a male dominated industry, because you not only already stand out as a female, but then you have to shine too. So all I'm saying here is just there's double standards, whether you're in front or behind the camera. Just be yourself, do the best you can. And honestly, just make sure you have a good community of supportive people around you that love what you're doing. And that's all you can do is just work hard and hope for the best and prepare for the worst.
So I was right. It could be a whole podcast, and I just added it to our list.
Sweet.
So, flipping that around, because predominantly, we call it an industry, a sport, whatever this ADV dual sport motorcycling. The thing we exist inside of is it's heavily male dominated. Like,
Yeah.
and that's traditionally been the case, but it's also, I think, because the space has not been welcoming or as welcoming as it could be. I don't want to put out there that it isn't because it is, but I don't know that we've talked about marketing and gatekeeping and all those things before. So as a man, what can I do to make our space, our community more welcoming and seemingly open to new ideas and new people, both online and in person?
I think the big thing is just if you're a guy and you're trying to be they're more welcoming to a female or whoever else, like just don't be an asshole, It's just that simple.
Simple. Just put
Like
on a
if
t-shirt.
if somebody's trying to unload a bike by themselves, help them. Walk over and go, "Hey, why don't I grab the end?" Or like, "Do you need some help? Let me like get the ramp set up." Whatever else. Just help. Be mindful. Be considerate. If you have a big group of people going out riding and you see somebody that needs a group, grab them and tell them to come with you. If somebody's struggling or somebody doesn't know if they want to go do harder terrain, just encourage them, have their back. And if they, you know, have trouble, you can always head back with them. I mean, it's just being a good, decent human being is really all you have to do. And trying to help take care of each other. I mean, that's the great thing about a lot of people in the ADV community is everybody is just out to ride and have a good time. Obviously, there's days when you're getting out with your friends, you're doing your route, you're, just shredding it up and having a good time. But when you're at these rallies or you're getting out with newer people and whatever else, the best thing you can do is just try and step up to the plate. If you are somebody that knows what they're doing and knows the ins and out of what it is to be an ADV rider and there's newer people, just be welcoming and be nice. That's all you have to do. It's not that hard.
It's great advice. I think I steered us away from the topic, which is supposed to be you, so I'm going to steer us back to it.
Okay.
You mentioned your Transalp build,
Yeah.
which I've been eagerly awaiting since we bought them in October. Mine is completely done. I've already done my 1,000-mile review. But can you tell us, so just an overview, like, is it going to be a video series? What kind of content can people expect? What's your approach? What are you taking to that? What approach are you taking? Words are hard.
So originally the idea was I was going to shoot a video series about the bike build. Unfortunately, due to friends getting injured and other people's schedules and the weather we've been dealing with, that kind of got sidelined. Our winter ended up being a lot more intense than I think any of us intended it to be.
And quickly, because
So,
it was super mild, and then bam, it
oh
wasn't.
man, it's been absolutely insane. And so, as a result of that, I ended up completely reconfiguring how I wanted to do it. And it will essentially be one just kind of bigger episode. My really good friend Tim, who's a great mechanic, he's been my guy for years. He and I are doing the bike build together. I'm with him today, tomorrow, and I was with him yesterday as well. It's all aftermarket parts, so it's just going to be talking through what parts that went onto the bike and why. And the reason that I actually waited until now, unlike Ben, who got right in there and got the bike built out, I waited because one, it was a time thing, and two, I was able to actually like get to work with a lot of these brands that I really like have loved for a lot of years. And a lot of them at the end of motorcycle season were so busy that I couldn't get parts before the end of December. So it was more of just a waiting game at that point. And also, I'm not out riding right now. There's a foot of snow on the ground and it's cold and wet and gross. So I'd rather be in the garage working on the bike for the season right now than sitting there staring at it, drinking bourbon, being sad. So it at least helps balance that out a little bit.
You can drink bourbon while you work on it.
I mean, we do drink
Just
beer.
makes things take
That's
a little longer.
what's the point of being in the garage working on a motorcycle if you're not having a Coors Light?
Told you I loved her. Anyway, walk me through your motorcycle history. So when did you start riding? What was your first bike? What bikes have you owned?
Oh my God. So I started riding motorcycles when I was 22. The great story behind that is that I fell in love with motorcycles at 16. My parents made me swear that I would never get on one or ride one until I was done with my education. I believe they thought that I would lose the affinity I had for them. And unfortunately, they were absolutely wrong. 2 days after I graduated, I was in an endorsement class. And then 3 days after that, I spent my savings account to buy a Honda Shadow. That was my first motorcycle.
It's common.
Yeah.
It's a common first
Yeah.
motorcycle.
It's a great bike. Love that thing. Yeah, so I had a Honda Shadow for a lot of years. Then I moved to New York City for a while, so I sold the bike. I actually didn't ride for about a year and a half when I was living there, just because riding in New York City is not something that's on my to-do list. And we were traveling a lot at the time. We did actually get to ride GSs around Iceland when my ex and I eloped there, and it was super, super fun. We did a 10-day trip around the island.
Wow.
It was incredible. We had such a good time doing that. Really, if you ever get the chance to go ride up there, definitely go, whether you're doing a road tour or off-road. It's absolutely beautiful. But in the interim, I owned a Triumph Bonneville for a while. I also then had a F700 GS. And what else have I had? I had obviously Lorraine, my CB500. I had Betty. She was my KTM 350 XCF. I miss that bike every day. And now I currently have Giselle, who is my Transalp 2024 750. And I have Letty, who is my 2004 CRF 250X, which is my little tractor. But yeah, I've had a couple of bikes. They've all been wonderful. I've been able to ride a lot of bikes. My ex was a huge Ducati guy, so we did the Ducati thing as well, or at least he did the Ducati thing. But yeah, it's been amazing. I feel very lucky to have been able to ride as much as I have. And I didn't really get into off-road riding until I started my job at Ride Adventures, and then I fell in love with dirt riding, especially just because being an outdoor person and somebody that just loves to be in the middle of the woods, in the middle of nowhere, it's the best of everything for me.
Agreed. Best way to see the wilderness,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Yep.
Okay, final question.
Yeah.
Because we're hitting 45 minutes here.
Yep.
You've lived many lives in your time here on Earth. Your short time here on Earth, I should point out. She's quite a bit younger than me, in fact. How does each of those lives help you with the things you're passionate about now, and how do those experiences combine to create the Graceful Renegade?
That's a big question to end on.
I told you I wasn't screwing around with the questions.
No, definitely not. Yeah, I think I've been very fortunate to have lived a lot of lives in the 35 years I've been here. And it hasn't always been easy. There's been a lot of tough things that I've gotten through, and I feel very lucky that I've had the people in my life, the friends and family that have just been unwavering in having my back in everything I've wanted to do. But I've always just been one of those people that I've always just wanted to be happy. I've always wanted to have adventures, and I've just kind of lived a little bit unconventionally. And as a result of that, I've been able to really build a life I like. And I ended up in Bend, Oregon by accident, and it ended up becoming my home. I love it here. I don't see myself really going anywhere for quite some time on a permanent basis. But the best thing about all of this is just learning over time how wonderful human existence is. You know, there's always hard times, but those always get balanced out. It's just waves of life. And being able to navigate those, whether it's dealing with motorcycle stuff, you get injured, coming back, whether it's life things, you get divorced, you know, you find somebody new, work things, losing your job. I mean, a lot of times I think people find what gives them hope, whether it's religion or God or whatever the hell it is. But for me, it's always just this intrinsic belief that everything happens for a reason and that things are going to work out just how they should. And if you want something, you have to ask for it and you have to push yourself to get it. And once you kind of get aligned with who you are, what you want to do with yourself, and what makes you happy, I think the rest just falls together. And I've been very lucky that as long as I've had good people in my life, I've been able to find a lot of joy in my experience and been able to do a lot of things and push myself to do a lot of things that not a lot of people are able to do. And I feel very fortunate. And it's a collective of having a life where I grew up an athlete. I always pushed myself. When I got divorced, I lost everything. So it was just more like, if you have lost everything, you have everything to gain. And I think a combination of a lot of those things put together just turned me into this craziness that I am, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
She's a walking dichotomy. You can expect the unexpected when it's the Graceful Renegade. It's right there in the name if you didn't figure it out from the beginning. And I hoped you enjoyed this opportunity to peek behind the curtain, under the hood of the sheer force of nature that is the Graceful Renegade. And tune in next week when the tables are turned and
Yes.
I have to go through the ringer and be interviewed by Grace, and we can look under my hood. That's gross. And you can start a bingo card and see how many questions she steals from me. Yeah, that's the thing I realized halfway through. I was like, damn it, I'm going to have to answer some of these because she's like writing them down as we go. We'll see. But again, I think it's important that you understand who the people are that are saying things about things you're interested in. Because if everything Grace just said made no sense to you, you're probably not interested in her advice or opinions. And I think it's important to have that perspective. So thank you. That we won't make every episode about us, I promise. No. But that background is important. And I think, Grace, thank you for your patience and willingness to sit through. You didn't know. I didn't give you the questions ahead of time. So you crushed it as always. And I feel like I've gained a deeper understanding of someone that I already thought I knew pretty well. So that's valuable.
Well, I appreciate the hard-hitting interview questions, particularly about the photos, because God, the photos. I know.
Again, if people want to avoid being scandalized by those, where should they go? Not go.
Sorry, don't go to the Graceful Renegade on Instagram or YouTube. You will not find racy photos of me there. Or will you?
You never know
You
unless you
never
don't
know.
go. Wait, never shine if you don't show. Hey now. Nope, that's wrong. Okay, well, I think that's going to do it for us this time.
I think so. All right, everybody. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening to my spiel. Huge thank you to Ben for putting those questions together. As always, live wild, ride free.
And please, please do not forget to be excellent to each other. Thank
Bye.
you.